a lot has changed over the last 10 years when it comes to this online space. And a lot has really changed over the last 2 to 3 years, like a lot. I think we've seen more change inside of this industry in the last 2 to 3 years than we have seen in the last like 10 or the last like 6 years before that 2 to 3 year period. And I've built several businesses over this last 10-year period, some with business partners, some with my own, a lot of different courses. We've done a lot of courses that have done 7 figures in sales, a lot that have done multiple 6. And I've learned a lot through this process. But my very first course that had ever done over $1 million in sales was a program called Local Video Academy. And that was a product that I partnered up with James Wedmore years and years and years ago. And it was one of the best partnerships I've ever been in. It was also a product that pretty much sold itself. And so what I wanted to do is talk about and share that story of what we did, how we created it, how it all came together, and what are some of the timeless foundation principles that we did back then that are still true today. Because there were things that we did that allowed that product to sell off the shelves. And you got to keep in mind, when we sold this product, this is a time where long or $1 million launches were not really a thing. They were not the norm. They were not the standard. They were like the unicorn. They were the thing that people would shoot for. They were the thing that like 1 or 2 people like had done inside of the space back then. Now you hear a lot of people doing them because the space is growing so much. But there were principles that we did to be able to do $250,000, $500,000 launches over and over and over again. And what I wanted to do is share what those were with you. So I asked James to come on to do another episode with me and to share those principles with you guys and tell the story of how we were able to do that and what did we do then that still works today. And then the podcast actually took an unexpected turn into talking about fear and what's really holding people back and different mindsets that we had back then or have developed since then that have helped us continue to scale and grow. This is a really packed episode, and it talks about 2 widely different things that actually work together. Like, what we did, what are those principles? And then how do you handle fear and overcome fear, and what fears are going to come up and why does it exist and all that stuff. And we tackle all of it in this episode. It is a long one. It's a packed one, but it is a good one. So let's get right into it. Keep on listening. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we have a great episode lined up for you. Why? Because we're telling a story that has never been told before. So for those of you that don't know, I got started in business maybe, I don't even know now, I think like 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, something along those lines. And I was doing okay. I was doing all right. We were making sales. We were building an audience, but I was working all the time and sales weren't where they should have been. And then I ran into a guy by the name of James Wedmore, and we got to talking. And we decided, if you fast forward a year down the road from when we first met, to create a business together. And that business went from basically just an idea in a coffee shop, literally, to a producing multi-million dollars worth of sales. And it was just a fun experience. And it was like my introductory to this whole like course business on that scale. And from there, obviously, you guys know I've gone to create my own multi-million dollar business as well. I don't know if I would have been able to do it without that experience or as quickly as I did and without having James as a mentor. So I asked James to come on to the podcast. And what we wanted to do was tell that story, how it happened, and break down why it works so well so that you guys can take those lessons and move forward. And we were just talking about it before this podcast, like a lot of the lessons that we did or learned back then, or the things we did, we would still do today to build a $1 million business in 2023. So James, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you here.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm really excited about this. I think this is going to be a really special one because that was a very special time in both of our lives. Like, I remember part of this was like, we need to hurry up and do this because like, I'm about to be a dad. Like, okay, man. All right. We'll launch it. Okay.
Yeah, that was true. It was like right when Will was born, is when we've got, and it was a great motivator for me to get my butt into gear. I think my business, it was a 6-figure business back then, but we were just, it was like the hustle your face off 6-figure business where it's like no breaks, working all the time. There's no system, no process. And, I think there's just one night, we have Jacqueline to thank for this, by the way, where I don't know if you know the whole story of how we first got in touch. I know you have your side of it, but this is my side of it. It was basically like, I was watching your videos and I'm like, man, this guy's teaching YouTube just like me. And I have a ranking program too, but he's just selling a lot more than I am. So I want to reach out to him. And there was also something that pulled me. I was like, I think this guy, him and I are supposed to be friends. And I feel like there's a lot of people that watch people online that feel that, but it was different because I'm not the type of person that watches someone on TV or the internet and be like, I'm going to be friends with that person. I was like, no, I think I'm supposed to meet this guy. So I wrote a message and then I deleted it and didn't send it. And then I told Jacqueline about it and she goes, just send the message. Like, what's the harm? And I was like, all right, fine. I hit send and I got no reply for like a month.
Yeah.
And then finally got a reply. Because I think your
Dawn.
Assistant found it or something, right?
Yeah.
From who?
From Dawn, my assistant. Yeah. Female, DAWN, not like Donald. So from my side of the story, the reason you got no reply is because I was like in a very introverted phase of my life. I had built the business up to like 300,000 a year and it was awesome. I was like, I had just moved into my place in Laguna and I was working like just a couple hours a couple hours a day, like making a video a week. And that was it. And I'd already started having these experiences where people were just like, oh, let me pick your brain. Let me take you out to lunch. So I was like, I just over course corrected on that. And I like said no to, and everybody was like, absolutely not. And Dawn just fought for you. She's like, I don't know what it is, but I just have this weird feeling about this guy and you have to meet him. And she forced, I was like, no, I don't. And I wasn't saying no after I like looked at your stuff. I was just like, I don't care. No.
Right.
And she didn't listen to me. And she goes, I'm making it happen. I've already talked to him. I put it on. You know that when she reached out to you, I was still a no. Again, hadn't seen anything of you. I didn't know who I was saying no to. I just said no to anybody. And she goes, I put it late at night. It's like 7:00. It's like 30 minutes at Starbucks. You can leave whenever you want. He knows that, blah, 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 blah. And that's when I was like, all right, let me see who this guy is. And she sent me a link to your YouTube channel. I was like, dude, we're doing like the same things, except he's doing it in Speedos. And we went and we had coffee at that Starbucks in Laguna. And there was, I remember that conversation very, very clearly because I didn't come in with any preconceived notions or expectations, but I was like, here's where like the story takes off is you immediately tell me what you'd been doing. Yeah. And you tell me that you've been doing these videos for local businesses and that you're like all filled up. And I remember you said a very specific thing to me that really stuck out where you were like, I was maybe just kind of like jumping into advice mode. Like, you should do this. And you're like, well, I would, but I can't. I'm like, why not? And you're like, because I can't take on anymore. Like, we're booked solid. And all of that perked my attention so much. And this is an important part of the story is that was 2013. And so I had launched my YouTube program in 2011. Within the first week of my first group of customers into that program, people, which was just teaching how to rank YouTube videos, people were asking, can you do this for local business owners? ? I was like, I don't know. I think so. And then I meet the guy and here he is and he's booked solid. And that's when the light bulbs start going. And so I said, I don't remember what I said. Oh, yeah, I do remember. I was like, okay, well, here's what you need to do. If you're already booked solid, like you got nothing to lose, raise your prices and charge like a continuity support system.
Yeah.
And then
So
I think I got it.
you told me charge $2,000 a video. And I think at the time I was charging 200. I
Yeah.
got into so much fear. $2,000? Are you kidding me? There's no way. And then you're like, yeah, and at least like $200 to $400 a month to keep the video ranked. And I remember thinking like, that's impossible. There's no way.
Yeah.
That's impossible.
And I'm just pulling numbers out of my ass, you know. I was just like,
I didn't know that. So I trusted you so much. I'm like, this is the guy. Like, I just knew that this was the person I need to listen to. And I was like, he must know. He just must know that this is going to work. So I'm going to trust him. And then for me, like we ended up, it was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting. Like you said, we ended up talking all the way until Starbucks closed. It was like 3 hours or something like that. And, right before you left, you had told me like, and it was the like the total stereotypical business on a napkin. You wrote out a whole business model on a napkin, and you were like, if you can get these prices at 6 figures, we will partner and form a product and sell this to people. And that's all I needed to hear. I was like, that's it. Like,
yes, because from everything you'd been telling me, what I heard was business owners are willing to pay for this and you are delivering value, but there's something wonky in the middle where you can't do this at scale. Like if you're charging $200, like you're just so busy, and it's like
it was a broken business model.
It was a broken business model in the middle, but both ends, they want it, they're willing to pay for it, and you're producing a valuable result that produces business for them. I'm like, it's just the messy middle here. And I basically was like, if you unlock this and figure this out, this is exactly what my audience has been asking for, and we will sell this and it will do incredible. Yeah. And I think it was the next day, or it was less than 48 hours, and you texted me.
Yeah, I basically I remember going home, and I'm a total introvert. Like I don't like talking to people or selling face to face. And I was so motivated because, like you said, my son was coming. Like I think Jacqueline was pregnant at the time. And I said, I'm going to make this work. I literally walked door to door to every restaurant in Thousand Oaks trying to sell a video saying someone's going to sign up, and using scarcity and FOMO to get one of them to sign up. And within 4 hours, someone paid me $1,000 and 200 for the video and $200 a month. And I was like, oh, this is easy. Like 4 hours, and I made $1,000 with 200 a month. Like I can do this all day long.
And then so like it's the next day, and I'm getting this text from you like, okay, I did it. You got the first one, $1,000, 200 a month, locked in. And I'm going, who the fuck is this guy? Like that's incredible. The amount of times, even since then, that you and I have given advice to people, and they're still like, I know.
Yeah, and then they ask you the same question 6 months later, and you're like, what the hell's going on right now?
Yeah, and I'm just like, wow, who the heck is this guy?
And so I went head first into it, and I think within 6 months, I had gotten that model up to $14,000 a month is what we were done. And then we're like, and I remember telling you, like, we started off this podcast episode, hey, sun's coming, like my time's being limited, like let's effing go, let's get this going. And we did. And that was what became Local Video Academy. Neither one of us had $1 million a year business yet. And so, obviously I think you're obviously a little bit more ahead of where I was. And so, we went in and we decided that there's 2 roles. How would you classify your role in this partnership?
I would say marketing director. Like I was in charge back then, which is so funny. I've had these moments, Brandon, where I was like, I was the one writing those scripts. Like I came up with all the messaging. Like you're the freaking messaging guy today. And I wrote all the messaging. Yeah. And so I was like, I will market and sell this, and I need you to be the face and the deliverer of it. So you are head of content. You got to, and I would say, okay, I need like a really cool strategy or tip right here. And you'd be like, how about this one? I'm like, no, not that one. And you'd be like, this one? Yes. And I'd like write it in there. Okay. And I remember you'd be sitting there creating the content, and I'd be writing the freaking scripts, and I'd be like, here, try reading this. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just crazy. I had no idea that messaging was my thing. I didn't know.
I know.
Didn't realize I was good. I wasn't good at it.
Back then it was just like, no, I'll do it. Just let me do it for right now, And
I think that's like the first lesson that we want to, because we kind of outlined this before the episode, and that's one of the lessons here is like one of the things that worked really well for us. Because back then, this whole idea of like integrator, visionary wasn't a thing. And I wouldn't say that you were visionary and I was integrator or vice versa, but the idea of having 2 distinct roles that are kind of like driving the company forward is what really allowed us to take off. Because for me, like you said, it was like I create the content. I give you what you need on that front, but I also create the program and I do fulfillment and I work with the students. You didn't have to do that. You did if you wanted to, but you didn't have to. Like, it wasn't your responsibility to get the students results or to do any of that stuff. Your responsibility was primarily marketing and sales. Mine was fulfillment. And obviously there was a crossover in between.
There was a crossover,
but mine was, face of the product and the marketing, being the face of the market, not creating it, and then the fulfillment. And I think that worked really well. How do you think we navigated those two roles successfully? Because I think a lot of people try to do that and they don't do it very successfully.
Yeah. Like, I even hate that we're talking about this because, like, straight up, I've never had a business quote unquote partnership that worked as well as ours. And today I work with a lot of people that are in partnerships.
Right.
And when they work, it's the rare exception. And that's hard, and it is. I've seen like 2 out of all of them. In fact, most of them, even today, I look back and some of them I've coached are gone. They're gone now. They separated. And so it's rare. And there was this, here's the first thing that I would say for most people, you got to really ask yourself if you want an actual true partnership like what Brandon and I created, because you probably don't need it.
Right.
But what we did was we both had it what I would call an equal value that we brought to the table, which he just described. I'm bringing the meat. You, Brandon, was bringing the content. This is the deliverable. And I said, I will close the sale. I will market and sell it. And I chose that even if I was like a step or a step or two ahead, I went into that, and he will tell you, I didn't go into that like, I know best, I'm better, I'm smarter, I'm bringing in more value. It was like we had no egos. We had no needing to prove anything to either of us, and neither of us got into any of our stuff. I remember we got in one little disagreement in the 2 years that we worked on that, and I can remember it clearly. It was like the one time I kind of was like, oh, man, oops, I think we made a little mistake here. But other than that,
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I do. I don't forget these things, Brandon.
Apparently not.
I asked of you.
This.
I remember this. Okay. So this was like our 3rd or 4th time launching it, and I was like, I really want a killer bonus, and I don't really see a killer like card open bonus. Brandon, will you do like a training class as the fast acting bonus? You're like, I don't want to do another fucking call. Like, there's already so many calls and so much content. I'm like, oh shit. Okay, maybe I'm asking too much of him. And like, I pulled back really fast. I was like, oh, and that was it.
I do remember that.
You remember that?
I do remember that now.
Yeah.
Well, because it also became, because like, we didn't know this at the time, but the students that we attracted were pretty needy students. And again, like, I'm here to serve and show up. But like, what we found is sometimes if you offered things, they're not always necessary. Like, one extra call wasn't getting them more results. I understand from a sales standpoint. It could.
Well, no, it was already so much that was in there. And so like, it kind of like, sometimes it was easy for me to be like, oh yeah, this is what will sell, but not understanding that it was taking more from you. You're already doing all these calls. I mean, there was hundreds of videos in there. I mean, you gave them everything.
It was a lot.
And that brings me to something that I think worked, like why this thing did over $2 million, the offer.
Yep.
And these are things today that when we do an episode, like what's changed, what's worked, what doesn't, is I'm so happy that the things that work then would work today will also work in 10 years, are these principles and foundational concepts. And at the seed or the nucleus of this was the offer. It was a phenomenal offer. It just sold itself. And the offer was as simple as get paid to make videos. And it was a complete A to Z simple system that you could position yourself to any local brick and mortar business and get paid a service for getting videos ranked for them. Yep. And it was just like done. It was like you could have a $10,000 a month business or more. And we had students that were just selling this service, and that was your business. And it was like, you got a business, boom, you're done. And then we started noticing. So it was a great offer. So I want to add one piece there.
Sure.
Because there's a big lesson to pull away in that. How do I know if I have a great offer? And here's how I knew we had a great offer. There's two things that happened. Number one, well, maybe three things, but number one, as I've already said, my students inside Video Traffic Academy were asking about this. Mm-hmm. So I tell anybody today, if you have anyone around you asking, then you need to pay attention to that. And people were saying, could I do this for local businesses? So then number two, when I saw a guy who was Brandon doing it successfully, I was like, okay, we're on to something. But I don't know if you remember this, but we did like a beta launch. Do you remember? We just like said, let's just sell it on a webinar for like $1,000, and we did like 2 webinars, and we crushed it. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit, I've never seen something sell that fast, and that it was the easiest sell I'd ever had.
It's like these webinars where people are like knocking your doors down.
Yes.
Just give me the link, or halfway through it's like, just give me the link to whatever you guys are selling. Like, can we just buy teach me, like comments like that coming in.
So that will never change. Is like what worked well is like you're unlocking an irresistible offer. And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people are not doing.
Well, let's talk about that, because I think it makes sense. Like, okay, great. Like, we know, like, I think there might be listeners like, okay, yeah, we've heard offers important, yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that make a great offer. I think one of the reasons, and I talk about this a lot, is that the offer solved a really big problem that people were having. And a lot of those problems were there's a couple different people having a couple different problems, but the big one was videographers were just like, you know, it's an art for them. It's a craft for them. They want to make these $5,000 videos, and they can't go and get clients. They're like the artist who can't get a client. And I remember Matt, who's now our director of growth, was actually an LVA student. That's how he got introduced to me.
Gosh,
that's exactly what he said. And I love, you know, the 4 words is like, get paid to make videos. He's like, that's what hooked me in. He's like, all I wanted to do was make videos, and I could not get clients, and no one would pay me for the videos. And you said, make videos, get paid. And he's like, all I had to do was just change my perspective from like art, cinema, film videos to just like company videos that tell a story of a company or a marketing video. Mm-hmm. And he's like, and that's what hooked me in. And he goes, that was the biggest problem that videographers had, is like, they're a dime a dozen. People can't tell them apart. They all have the same gear. How the heck do you go and you close the deals? And that was the biggest problem. Is that was one of the biggest issues that we were solving for people.
And one of the sub niches we went down was the videographer. And we created these ads of like, why work for Bridezilla, who's going to pay less and be a pain in the butt, when you can work for the business owner that'll pay more and give you reoccurring revenue. And it was like, those ads crushed. And it was like, you want to get paid to make videos, just change who your client is, and you'll make more money.
But that was the second problem that it solved, is even if they could make it, like you could get the Bridezillas and do the wedding videos, and you could get the clients. It was job after job after job. So the reoccurring solved another problem. So we're solving 2 major problems in one offer. It was like, we're going to show you how to get the client that pays you thousands, and we're going to show you how to make it reoccurring, so that if you want to take 3 months off, you have the income to be able to do that, which was never possible for these people before. They just didn't know how to do it.
I think so. I think the next piece of like what is very important for an irresistible offer is like, the first is what you were talking about. It's like, it's a big enough problem that there's a level of like desperation, frustration. They want this solved really badly, but the art that exists within an irresistible offer is that what you present as the solution has to balance this delicate balance of being simple enough that people go, it's so simple, but complicated enough that says, and I need you to help me with it. And that, my friends, is such an art. So to be able to go, oh my gosh, like I could just do this for local businesses, and there's this process on how to get them ranked. This is so simple. Brandon, will you teach me how to get the videos ranked on YouTube and Google? And I'll pay you for that. And it had that balance. And I think people, like, there's a lot of people that either make very complicated, convoluted offers. Like, that just sounds awful. Like, I got to do what? Or they go the opposite and they make something so simple that it leaves nothing to be desired. Here's a great example. Gratitudesecrets.com. This $997 program is going to teach you how to be grateful every day. You don't need a course for how to be grateful. You just don't. And a lot of people are selling things that it's like, it's either so complicated or it's convoluted. And we need to find this balance between simplicity versus leaving something to be desired.
Yeah. And I think our marketing helped with that, which before the podcast, we were talking about it.
Yes.
And
this was so good.
I forgot that we had even done this.
Yeah.
And so I think the marketing positioned the offer really well too, to be very simple, because we were doing a lot of quick win marketing, and we would do this on webinars.
Yes.
Yeah. Quick win content. And I remember after you brought it to my attention before the podcast episode, you were like, hey, Brandon, you remember when we would actually rank videos live on the call? And I'm like, wait, what? But that's what we were doing. We were showing them how simple this process could be. Where
we did two things. Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yep.
No.
Okay. You take it away.
So we do two things. The first thing we do is we showed the opportunity, and I think that's huge. Is like, and this was a huge opportunity. Was what do small business owners want? What are they struggling with? They're overwhelmed and intimidated by all these things of the internet, and social media was just like blowing up, and they're just like, there's like the local pizza shop is like, what do I do? And so they all were not doing it, but they knew they needed to. So it's like, boom, the opportunity, right? And then we said, what if what you could provide them was something so simple that to them, you'll look like a freaking wizard, a magician, but it's actually so simple for you to do this that you can start doing it now and they're going to be blown away. And Brandon would take a video and he would type in the keyword on Google and it wouldn't be there. And he'd go, watch this. And by the end of the call, live in front of all these people, that video would be ranked at the top of Google for like Thousand Oaks Cafe, whatever.
Reviews or something like that.
Reviews. And boom, his video that he just posted is up there. And he goes, this is what companies will pay for. And you can do that for them. And look how simple that was for you to do that. And people's jaws just hitting the floor.
They would literally drop, and then we would give them a foot in the door strategy combined with that. So it's like, here's one strategy to get your foot in the door.
And the foot in the door means like you're talking to the gatekeeper, and that they're going to pay you to do more. And it was so
like,
good.
It was like, here's what you need to do to get past the gatekeeper and start a conversation with the business owner. Yeah. And even the script even say to the business owner to close them. And then here is what we're going to do. And here's a very quick win. And I remember,
you know what it is, like, Brandon, I just want to interrupt for a second. Cause like what's coming up for me is like, what people are always saying is like, you got to provide value, right? Give a lot of value. And it's like, no. Today. And then too, you don't just provide value. Like that just doesn't mean anything. It's like what you were doing was blowing people's minds and saying, and I'm going to be kind of a jerk about this. You were basically saying, look how much smarter I am than you. I mean, really, like, look at you never, I mean, just humor me, everybody. Like you were basically in your content going, you never thought of this. I did. I'm smarter than you. And I did this, and look at the results I get. And you don't need to be smart because I got about 1,000 other really smart things I'm doing here that you didn't even think about, that if you start just implementing will get you the same results. And that's so much more powerful than just like provide value. Because a lot of people are like, I've heard this before. And it's like, you really do have to take people further than where their brain has been taking them.
Well, I think I think when we hear you have to add value, what people automatically go to is more information, teaching the knowledge. But there's so many ways to add value. And so what we were doing is we were adding value in actionable steps and quick wins where it's like, look, I'm going to show you what is possible. If you take my knowledge, my knowing, my skill sets and apply just 1 ounce of it, here's the result you can get. Yeah. And people were leaving. And I remember what we did is the foot in the door strategy. And I said, here's what you're going to do. You can make a video for someone, hire VA to do it. It's going to cost you $5, maybe even $1. And then you're going to rank it in Google. Here's how simple it is. Bam, I just ranked this video live for you right now. Send it to the business owner using this email script and tell them you want to have a conversation with them. Mm-hmm. And people were like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. I'm leading with value. But what it was like, you're teaching them, which is the knowledge and teaching the skill sets, but also in a very actionable way where they can literally get results and do what you're teaching within 24 hours. But it's not the whole kitchen. It's like, you're not teaching everything that you do. Yeah. And I remember, dude, from those webinars, we literally had people like within 48 hours being like, I got a response. I got someone messaging me back.
Oh yeah.
And then the offer became so easy because it was like, cool, join the program. We'll show you what to say, how to fulfill, how to do this. We'll teach you another strategy. So it's not so labor intensive, because the one we would teach is a little bit labor intensive. And then it's like, okay, I'm in. No doubt. Like this, easy, no brainer.
And it was like three steps. It was like, get the client, make the video, rank the video. And we'd always just teach like one of those. Like, here's how to either rank the video or here's how to get the client. And then the other two were left to be, like all the strategies inside the program.
But I think in today's market, in today's day and age, people get so much into the teaching that they don't help people integrate the teachings. And I think that's what we were doing, is we were getting them to take, here's what we're teaching, and integrate it into their life, to their skill set, to get them to be like, I can do this. Because if you can't get someone to say, I can do this, they're never going to buy.
Correct.
And so even today, like, our best marketing is literally a guide that we created on how to create content that gets DMs. And I just tell you, like, if you do it right, within 24 hours, you're going to get DMs. And I have people every day message me, we're getting DMs. We're getting DMs. That's the best piece of marketing I've done in the last like 3 years. And it's all action orientated. Do this and get a result. But I think sometimes we get into this space of, I got to teach everything I do and give them the whole plan. It's like, no, just give them a small result that they can actually do. And that's some of the best marketing in the world, which I think would still work today. I mean, and I know it does.
Yeah. Because like most people, it needs to be like that one step at a time. And then they see the progress, and that gives them more possibility and more hope to keep going. But we could, if Brandon and I wanted to, we could still be doing this today. And this is actually really cool because a good buddy of mine, Ryan McGinn, I've known him longer than I've known Brandon. And today he does the service, the same type of business, but different, where he does a short form video, filming, editing. So it's not ranking, but like going viral with like all the TikToks and Instagram reels. It's over 7 figures a year doing that as a service. So the model maybe has like changed, and evolved. But if Brandon and I wanted to teach that still to this day, I believe we could still be wildly successful with it. But I'm very proud like that we walked away from it. And I walked away from it first. And I will tell you straight up why I did. I was like, this is actually moving me away from my purpose. And I'm very proud of myself because it was a very lucrative opportunity. We were both making really good money doing it. And I completely walked away. And I was like, because I don't want to work with the freelancer and the videographer. That's not who I'm here to work with. And I was like, this was exciting, but it wasn't feeding my soul. And I think that's just an important piece to add because you walked away from it, I would assume, for the same reasons eventually, right?
Yeah, I think about a year later, I think I did 1 or 2 launches with it on my own, and they were good. They were six-figure launches, and but it was the same thing. I'm like, I got to a point where I'm like, this is not what I'm meant to do. Yeah. But looking back at it, I mean, it was a necessary step for both of us for a lot of different reasons.
A lot of learning.
A lot of learning, and also just for us to even connect. Because I remember even like doing I would come down, the way the business worked is like, I would come down and spend a couple of days with you, and we would film all the stuff and all the marketing we need to do, and went surfing. And then we would like take those long walks, and sometimes Michael Alaniz would come down and we would walk down to Starbucks and stuff. And I remember one night, like talking to Michael, and I was like, man, I feel like I should talk to James about like psychic readings and stuff. For some reason, I feel like, like I want to tell me stories. Oh, that's what it was. I had a psychic reading, and the person had told me you're going to meet someone. And they described you to a T. I had not met you yet. And this person's going to change the trajectory of your business. And so I was like, all right, whatever. And so I told Michael, and Michael's like, man, it seems like a really good project you guys have going on. And it seems like it's gonna do really well. And I was like, I know it will, because I had this reading and this person told me like this person, whatever you guys work on together is gonna be really successful. And they described James to a T. He's like, you should tell him. I'm like, no, I don't want James to think I'm weird. And he just looks at me straight in the eye and goes, trust me, James isn't gonna think that's weird. Just like, all right.
Trust me.
And so, I ended up telling you that whole thing.
Yeah.
And then that led this whole path from there, having that friendship of
it's unreal because like, I mean, we really did, other than that one time where the story I told where you like, no, man, I can't do any more calls. You have me doing like 8 already. Like, give me a fucking break. Like it was such a match made in heaven. We were both like, you were so low key and I'm low key. You know, like I was kind of like, I have a plan. You got to trust my plan, but I'm open to anything you want to say, object at any time. And you were like, no, man, it's good. Are you sure? I'm good. Let's just, And we just both were able to get to work, get to business. There was never resentment. There was never communication issues. And like everything we did, just like, wow, that was great. You know, we like worked hard, but we played hard. I'll never forget that first time you came down to work on LVA. I was like, okay, you're here. All right. Cool. Let's go surfing. And we just took the boards down and went to the beach for like 3 hours. And you know what? And for everyone listening, that's my favorite memory. I have footage. I have footage of us like just laughing our asses off, because I have this video where Brandon and I ran into each other while surfing, like crashed and just like wiped out hardcore. Like our boards crossed. And we're just laughing, and it was like perfect weather. And like, that's what I remember is the 3 hours when we're day one ready to work on this project, and we went surfing instead of working. And then we come back and we're talking and sharing ideas and like, okay, cool, let's do it. And we did.
Well, a lot of the best ideas happened there on the water too. And
exactly.
I didn't know how to surf. So you were like, let's go surfing. And I was like, oh, all right. So just grabbed the board and went out there and learned. And that's why we crashed into a lot of the times, because I didn't actually know how to surf. And so I just go the wrong way on a wave.
You go the wrong way.
Crash right into you and stuff. But yeah, I remember those days. And I think that's another important lesson of what I think would work today in building a business is like, I think sometimes we force ideas and we like, there's this hustle mentality. And I think from day one, we were never like that. It was just like pure optimism. Every conversation was in possibility. It was also in balancing the masculine and feminine. It was like balancing rest and hard work. Like when it was time to rest, we rest. When it was time to have fun, we had fun. When it was time to work, we fucking worked. Like there was late nights where we would 5 hours, just pump stuff out. We would be sometimes we would just work all day and then we would go take a break. Like we figured out there was like a lack of structure, but structure at the same time, you know. It was just free flowing. And I think a lot of people just can't get to that place, and it really does disrupt the business. Like if I was going to start a business again today, I mean, that's how I would treat it. It's just, okay, ideas are coming, go for a mountain bike ride, go for a hike, go play with your kids or whatever it may be. Okay, cool. So let's kind of recap where we're at now. So some of the lessons that we think would work today, or that you think would work today from LVA, is like, obviously the offer. The offer was an amazing offer. A lot of really big problems.
Part of it was that it was like it's all complete thing. It's like, you know, you got to look at it from every angle. And one of it is like the objections. And it's like, there was no objections. Like, just humor me, right, Brandon? Like, what would, if the offer is this, you know, this is what it was. It was like, you've been on the internet, you've been looking for a way to like make your own business, and nothing seems to be working. Here's a way where you could take advantage of video, which was this huge wave, and make easy, simple videos and get paid a ton of money for small businesses. And we're going to show you how to get your foot in the door with them. We're going to show you how to demonstrate results for them in advance. And we're going to show you how to get reoccurring revenue with them. No one had an objection. Like, there was just nothing you could say. Even the
Right.
price at $2,000 was like, we're literally going to show you how you can make $2,000 off your first video. So
Yeah.
this program pays for it. There was nothing else. It wasn't like, what if you don't have a camera? It was like, use your freaking iPhone. Like, it was,
Right.
remember, you were like, no, you can make these slideshow videos. And then it was like,
Right.
I don't have time to make these videos. I don't know how to make videos. Like, we actually created training on how you give the process to a virtual assistant and they make the videos for you. And I think that's like, all of these things are universal. Like, your offer today has to be those things that we talked about before, like that big problem that they want solved more than anything. And it's
Right.
and it's positioned in a simple way, but a lot of people don't address the elephant in the room. And the elephants in the room are the objections. And the offer itself squashed all the objections. And I really, truly never saw something sell that easily. Like when we offer business by design every year, the biggest objections we get, and those are the things that like I can't really overcome because it's just you. It's like people saying the imposter syndrome stuff. Like, what if I don't believe in myself? I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I have what it takes. And that's a huge counterforce. And I just have to tell people, like, you know, hey, you gotta get over your shit if you want to do this.
Right.
So it's just a distortion and a lie you're telling yourself. And if you're ready to let that go, you got this. But that's such a driving force for people. And that wasn't there in this. There wasn't that for people. They weren't like, I don't think I can do this. It was like, oh my gosh, like this is stupid simple.
Yeah. And it
So
was simple.
right.
Made it
Yeah.
super simple. Yeah. Yeah. And that was a lot of the, objections we would get too. And it was great too, because my story kind of lined up with it too. I think when I sold my first deal, I didn't even have a camera. I took the down payment and went and bought a camera and then looked up YouTube videos on how to use it and then went and filmed the next week.
What do you call that?
What
What do you call that? Yeah, you had a great story. That was part of what we put in the launch. What do you call that as a characteristic? Like, whatever that is, like that's what everyone needs. You know, like you were willing to do it and like say yes before you were even ready.
You're just resilient, scrappy, figure it out.
Being scrappy. And like we were both that in our own ways. And like you have to be willing to do that to some degree. Say yes first. Build your wings on the way down,
Well, yeah, I mean, we did a lot of that stuff too. And like, we tried a lot of new things too. I remember you talked about a 3-part webinar series that had no pitch in it, which to be honest with you, I don't remember that.
Yeah. So here's where like intuition, okay, this is really cool. Cause like when we met, I was starting to get really weird. And I was like starting to dive into like a lot of the spirituality. And like, I was like learning about intuition and was like really trying to flex that muscle and law of attraction and stuff. And so the first thing I always say this to people today is like law of attraction starts with thoughts and ideas. So you put yourself into a certain receptive state and you all of a sudden start attracting new and different ideas. And I'll never forget this, man. You weren't down here for this, but we had done a launch before and I said, I want to do this launch a little differently. And about an hour later, I get this is no joke, I just get a random phone call from a peer. And she calls me just to tell me this strategy that she just did. And she's like, I just kind of created this thing and it did this and it totally worked. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then it was like, yeah, bye. I was like, okay. And I'm walking to lunch. I was like, that's a weird phone call. And then I just got hit by this like ton of bricks. I'm like, holy shit, that's it. And what she had done was she goes, I did these non-pitch webinars. And I really framed it as like, there's nothing for sale in this webinar. I'm not going to sell you anything. And I was like, that's it. And Brandon and I don't remember how many we did, but I remember doing that. And we let people know like, there's nothing for sale here. We just want to show you something really, really cool. And people were like blown away and were like, that was so awesome. And like, thank you for just doing free content like that without, trying to make it a sales pitch the whole time. And then at the end, I just said, in a week, we're going to release this 3-part video series. So if you do want to join us for that, here's the link, get signed up and let's go. But there's nothing for sale here. And it gave all this goodwill and value on the front end without asking for anything. And so people were so much more primed and pumped. And yeah, we were doing like, I think we were doing were we doing Facebook ads back then? I feel like we were doing a little bit. Yeah, but I remember our launches were 250 to 500,000.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Which back then was huge because no one was doing like $1 million launch was like, it was just, it was like the goal that everyone was reaching. And I
I
think
know.
there was like one person that I know of that had done one. Like I think Mike Koenigs or Mike Jennings or
Yeah,
something.
there were a couple of like, it was a rare thing for sure.
Yeah. And so we were doing that. And I'm not like, I remember one time, I'm not the type of person who gets overly excited. Like I'll be excited, but I'm not jumping up and down and like screaming, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And so we did a $500,000 launch. And you had told someone that one of our friends or colleagues, and they're like, well, is Brandon excited? And you're like, I don't actually know. So you got on the call with me and you're like, hey, I was just talking to so-and-so and they asked me if you're excited about this launch. And I told them I don't know. And it was like quiet for a second. You were like, so are you excited that we just did a $500,000 launch? I was like, dude, I am so pumped about it, because it was like 500,000 was like, we were like at top of our game. Like no one in the space, like
I had never done anything like that.
Launches. Yeah.
That's what was so cool about it. It's like, yeah, I had all this like success already, but like, I'm proud of the younger James that I didn't bring any like ego into. Listen, Brandon, I know better.
Yeah.
Let's stick with me, kid. And I really saw it as like, you know, but you know, like, look, I know you've said things like, oh, if it wasn't for Jim and James, da 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 over the years, and it was like, I never saw it that way. And I've told you this personally. I never saw it that way as like, I'm gonna bring you up, kid. Here, just stick with me. I was like, I saw your gifts. And I took mine and I said, I think if we put these together, we're going to have something that's bigger and better than if we did something separately. And I was right. We did. I mean, it was, 100%. That was the biggest thing I'd ever done at that time. And it was because we did this thing together, and it was really just like a match made in heaven. And then I remember,
it was really interesting too, because I you know, looking back this story, like I wanted to have James come on and tell the story to like share the lessons of what worked really well so you guys can incorporate it into your business. And one of those lessons for me was having those mentors. And so like James was one of the first mentors I had, and like watching him grow his business and then seeing him grow the sales and the product that we had was really great. And then I think I got introduced to Jim a few years later, like a year or two later after that. And Jim obviously was a great mentor as well. But the thing is like, that's a great lesson, is you need the mentors. You need the people that have done the things that you want to do to guide you, and not necessarily just to guide you, you know, to what to do, but to guide you away from the things that won't work. Is probably the most important thing that mentors can do. Yeah. Saves the time. But there was a point. You have to also realize your mentor is not going to be your savior. Your mentor is not going to be like an automatic ticket to success. And there was a time where even after like LVA was done and I didn't want to do it anymore, and I still was friends with James and having him like help me, and I, you know, talking strategy with him and having Jim as a mentor and business. I think I was maybe at 250 a year on my own, but there was a point where it was like, dude, if you can't do this and get to that 7-figure level, and you have Jim and James as a mentor, you're going to be the biggest failure ever. And it's going to be a huge embarrassment ever. And it was a really big
fear.
He's
hard on himself. Yeah.
It was like, oh my God.
Hold on. Can you just, I mean, it's up to you if you want to tell it, but like in the shortest and anonymous way, like you decided to like pass it on and do the same thing with somebody else that I had done with you. And then you like published somebody and was like, I'll do the marketing, you do the content.
Yeah. And I did. And we were really successful with that. And so that was my next phase, was like, okay, I'm going to do for James what he did for me. Yeah. Or no, I'm going to do what James did for me for someone else.
Right.
And I took on a publishing partner, and we did really well with that for like a year or two. And then that came to an end. And then that led me to the whole story of like pivoting out of what I did and finding the video Forex and all
but you had to go like, it's like what all those like stupid 24-year-olds share on Instagram, where it's like disappear for 6 months and then come back, you know, and it's like, but you did.
Yeah.
I hate those dumb memes. It's like, you're 24, shut up. Like disappear for 6 months. Like, okay. All right. Like, all right, kid, see you later. I'm disappearing for 6 months. Like, Will, like in his 20s, like on the therapist's couch, like, yeah, my dad just disappeared for 6 months. really scarred me, really fucked with my head. But
That
you
dude,
know,
that's what it was like. That 4 months was,
yeah,
it was like,
you dove deep into that, and like there was this
it was
weird
brutal.
experience because I saw it where like Brandon was just a different person, and like all
Yeah.
of a sudden he's like, so like this was just such an interesting experience for me because we started LVA, and I'm like, Brandon, okay, will you go like start the outline for module 1 of the program? And he's like, yeah, okay. And so he's creating the content. I'm like, I'm gonna try to figure out how to sell this thing. Okay, I'm writing
Mm.
scripts, and then all of a sudden one day Brandon's just like, no, 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 dude, your messaging has to be like this, and you got to change this and say it more like that. And I was like, wait, what? Like, how did you do that? What the hell? Who is this guy? And he's like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, come over here, check this out, dummy. Do. I'm like, oh
Dummy.
my gosh, you dummy. Like, I
Well,
am a
even
dummy.
then, it was a very interesting time because like I had built the business about $100,000 a year on my own. Then I partnered with you, but like my responsibility wasn't that. It wasn't the
Mhm.
selling and thing or whatever. And then when that split, it was all my responsibility, and I did okay with it. I was still doing fine. But then I, again, like you said, partnered with someone else, and we really relied on their audience. And it was pretty easy to sell because they had such a big audience and a great relationship with their audience. But then I remember thinking, like, I don't have anything on my own. I was reliant on James, and now I'm
Mm,
reliant on this person, and I don't. And there's
yeah,
like this doubt, and then you have these two mentors, and like, do you really have the ability to do this 100% on your own? And it wasn't until that partnership came to an end where I was like, well, you're going to have to fucking figure it out real quick because you're going to have to do it.
hmm,
And then it led to like 4 months of figuring it out, which then led to the video 4X. And even then I still didn't understand that messaging was my thing. And then you even came to me and was like, can you help me with the messaging? Can you help
yeah,
me with all of this stuff? And I was like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Because you started to notice all of those sort of things.
yeah.
But it was great because that experience of like building LVA and building these other businesses gave me a lot of these, what you're talking about, these fundamentals, these like principles that are true for every business, whether or not, no matter when you're starting. It could be 10 years ago, it could be today. They still hold true and work.
Yeah.
And I want to bring that conversation back to what these are and just kind of recap what they are, because I really want you listeners, everyone listening, to take these lessons away and really focus on it. Because there are, like, I would say today, there's more shiny objects than there have ever been. There's
Oh, yeah.
more platforms than there have ever been. There's more competitors than there have ever been. There's so many paths you can take, more than ever.
And there's more contradicting advice than ever
Advice.
before because you have to understand this.
100%.
Like, people don't want to hear this, or people don't want us to share this, but sadly, the predominant marketing strategy today is I'm right and everyone else is wrong.
It's attention seeking.
Yeah, but it's attention seeking by knocking everybody else down to say,
Right.
here's why every other way to do anything else that you want is wrong and stupid and bad, and here's why you're getting bad advice for everybody except me.
Right.
Except my advice is the right advice. And it's like, that's like everyone's strategy. And so you follow that, and all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a second. This person said that that's wrong, but you're saying it's right. And then you're saying this is right, but that's wrong. And it's like, yeah, because that's sadly how a lot of people are marketing today. And then you're just like being bounced around from this to that. And like when Brandon asked, like, I really want to bring this, it's almost 10 years ago, back in this story of 10 years ago. I want to say that 80% of it holds true in terms of what worked then would work again today. And those are the under the surface like principles and higher level strategies and it's like we're still doing that stuff today. And like, but people are chasing the 20% that's always changing. And then that they put all their marbles in the 20% that's fleeting and changing. When like you build your house on a solid foundation of unwavering universality of constant truth, and then you can do all that on top.
Yeah. And so some of those truths are like having a really good offer, crafting an offer that pretty much sells itself, we did talk about partnership, but like, even for me, it's not necessarily, I'm not saying go find a partner. That doesn't matter. What it was is how do you manage your working relationships? Because you're not going to be able to do this on their own. It's how do you the relationship that James and I had is the same sort of relationship you need with your team, with your employees, with your virtual assistants. There has to be like, give them the responsibilities, give them the numbers. Are they hitting their responsibilities or not? James and I both hit our responsibilities and what we agreed to. And had we not, there would have been some probably difficult conversations. Like, if I wasn't answering students' questions, James is going to come to me like, this is what we agreed to, blah, 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 blah. But a working relationship, if you're going to be in this business or any business, is like being clear on roles and responsibilities, integrity, all that stuff. The other thing too is like, we tried a lot of different strategies. Like James said, webinars, no pitch webinars, video series. But the thing that we really focused on was a mastery of the strategy. It wasn't like, hey, let's just do this one time and let's not do it again. Like, I don't even remember how many webinars and different topics we've tried. I don't know like how many times we rewrote the video series. We actually redid and filmed the video series 2 or 3 times, I think, probably. Like, there's a mastery of the strategy where I think a lot of people just hop from thing to thing, try it once and then give up, try it once and then give up. Yeah. And then the marketing was very simple, but quick win and action oriented. You take those sort of things and philosophies into 2023, you guys are going to do really well.
So there's this word that's very loaded. So I'm going to unpack and change the definition. And that's this word launch. Now, when I say like, are you doing a launch or you should do a launch? It immediately conjures up something for you, an image, an idea, a definition. And for a lot of people, when they hear the word launch, they hear this big, huge, insurmountable thing that's just going to like burn them out. And I understand that. But here's what I want to say for anybody who's in any type of digital product-based business. It's 2 things. Number 1, your digital products don't sell themselves. So you went into this business, you're in this business, so you chose it. So shut up and do it, you know, because, well, it's like people want all of it, but they don't actually want, you know, they don't understand what they signed up for. And it's like, like, look at all the benefits. Like the digital product-based business is the most scalable, profitable business model out there. And it's also the lowest barrier of entry, right? So, all 3 of those. Like, usually businesses can have one of those. Like, it's got a low barrier of entry, but it's not scalable, you know, or it's not profitable. So like, if we're selling widgets on Amazon, like how many, like anybody you talk to that sells physical products will just tell you like the R&D, the 3D printing, design, prototyping, the manufacturing, all of that for like hundreds of thousands, inventory and refunds and the fixed costs and all of that. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars up front that you don't have, right? So you chose something that you go, oh my gosh, like I don't need $100,000. I don't need a warehouse. I don't need a bunch of employees. Everything else does. Every other business does. So it's like, shut up, because like there's so many benefits to it. But here's the caveat that people don't understand. Here's the asterisk. With all that good comes one little catch. You have to sell it. If Brandon and I said we're going to make an iPhone case, and it's this really cool case with like a design or something, and we really like it, it's really nice, we don't need to go do launches and webinars for it. We're putting it on Amazon. We're going to probably create some ads and find one that works, and then once it works, it's just like gravy and good.
You don't need to convince people they need an iPhone case. The need and demand's already built in.
Well, even look at the behavior. I'm searching it on Amazon. I see it and I go, yep, that one, done, right? So people don't do that with online courses. So you have to reverse engineer this from the behavior. And so selling is an act in this space. If you want to sell your product, it is an act, which means there has to be an action. Okay, it could be automated. That's still an act. It just means software is running it, or you are doing it in real time. So to me, the definition I use with my students is a launch is the act of offering your product, and it's 4 ingredients, okay? It's some sort of invite or gate, and that's a very important piece, so I can unpack that really quickly. It's some form of content, messaging, an offer, and a deadline. I've seen people do this with funnels. I've seen people do it with a sales call. I've seen people do it with a, Instagram DM process, and I've seen people do it with 3-part live launches, webinars, challenges, etc. But those 4 pieces always apply to all 4 or all types of launches. There is some kind of gate, and what we mean by gate is like someone took a step forward. Like if I say, "Hey, I'm hosting a training. Do you want to come? RSVP, yes or no?" If you said yes, you took a step forward. You're in it. Now I'm teaching something, I'm offering content. There is an offer, and then there is a deadline, scarcity, urgency, or some environment that's created that says you need to make a decision, yes or no. Mm-hmm. And those are like the 4 prerequisites for selling anything. Now, there's always exceptions. You can always get by selling with like 3 of those out of the 4, but rarely. And it's when you have all 4 of those that you're going to be selling your stuff. And so that always has to be happening. And that was happening for us. That's what we were doing 10 years ago.
Right.
And that's what we're doing now. And we'll probably be doing it in another 10 years. What's changed today is like maybe how you invite them, or how it unfolds, or the experience and the feel, the branding. Oh my gosh, Brandon, our branding back then was awful. I literally went to graphicriver.net and bought like a $20 branding package and was like, good enough, and like put it on a keynote slide.
But that goes to show you we didn't need the branding. It's like these fundamentals, these foundations of what you're talking about can trump or overtake like a lot of this stuff that you're so convinced that you need. Like, look, good branding's never going to hurt you. But is it absolutely required as like the first thing to your success? No, not really. And that's one of those distractions a lot of people pay attention.
But like, great branding, great websites on stuff could never compensate for a bad offer and bad messaging. No way. So that's the thing, is like people don't have that strategy. Oh, go ahead.
Can you repeat those 4 things real quick? I'm missing one of them.
So gate, message or experience, offer, deadline.
Okay, got it.
And show me one that doesn't have that, and that's successful. That's like someone took their business to 7 figures, but they didn't use that. You really can't. Like, even if you just say, I just do sales calls. Okay, great. So they had to book a call. That's your gate. The call becomes the message. You pitch the offer, and there's a deadline. There's always something. It's like, hey, if you sign up on this call now, I'm going to give it to you at a discounted rate, or like, let me know, give me a decision in the next 48 hours. It has all 4 of those.
Right.
And all 4 of those are the bare essentials, minimum requirements. And so here's why this is important for 2 reasons. Number 1, most people are doing no strategy. So they don't have this. And it's like, just pick a strategy. So what they're doing is they're relying on hope. If I post enough, they'll like me, right? And then they'll just ask me, right? And then if they ask me, I can sell it to them. That's called reactive business growth. Like, I'm just reactively waiting for someone to come in. I was just at my local consignment shop in town. So they sell like furniture and stuff. And I say, what is your lever? I'm always like asking all these nerdy business questions. I was like, what's your lever that you pull for growth? She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, if you want to grow the business, what lever do you need to pull to grow it? And she goes, oh, it's easy. It's inventory. So I said, so if you get more inventory in, you'll make more sales. She goes, absolutely. I said, so what is your proactive strategy for getting more inventory? And she goes, we don't have one. We just wait until people bring stuff in the front door.
Oh my God.
So I said, so you have a reactive business model. You just hope and pray, fingers crossed. And that's how a lot of people are running their business. I just hope and pray that someone is going to, and this is where I'm going to be kind of like a stingy wingy police right now, is that's how most people are living their lives. They're sitting around waiting for something to happen to them. They're waiting for an opportunity to fall in their lap. They're waiting for someone to say, hey, good news, it's your turn. And it's like, that's like, so why? What are we doing? And
this might take us to a whole different path, but it's like, and you've worked with so many people, and I know there's a lot of people on the call that are like, man, James is, describing me to a T. Why are people waiting? And like, what is the thing that's going to get them to move over that edge? Cause like, that's not something I had to deal with personally. Like, I know I have different experiences in life and traumas and whatever it may be. Yeah. Like, my situation was so bad, living with my in-laws, broke, a kid on the way. Like, I was willing to do whatever the hell it took. Like, I would walk door to door. My hands were literally shaking when I was handing flyers I was stumbling over my words. Like, but I did it because I had to. So what have you realized is like the
Yeah.
bit, like, is there a certain thing that's holding
Yes.
people from taking that
Yes.
action? Because there
Yeah,
are people here that are like,
I'm going to answer it, and it's so simple, but people are going to like be upset that they want to hear a different answer, and I don't care that you want to hear a different answer. The answer is one word, and it's fear. You're afraid. You're fucking afraid, and I get it because I was too, and Brandon just said it too. My hands were shaking. But something I know about Brandon is that since I've known him, he's done a lot of things that he was afraid of, but that was the key thing, is that he did it even when he was afraid. This has been scientifically, neuroscientifically proven that when we are in a state of fear, our cognitive abilities diminish. Our judgment is clouded. Clarity becomes obscured. We cannot think straight. Any of us have had this experience where someone catches us off guard and we kind of like, what, right? So imagine living in that state. And so you cannot see clearly. So the tricky thing with fear is, like, I just want everyone listening that you're not just listening because we're your entertainment. I mean, that's wonderful if you are, but that's got to be 5% or less. Like, I just want to be entertained today. I know, like, there's some cool movies on Netflix, but I'll just listen to Brandon and James talk. You're here for a reason. The reason is like you want something in your business to change, and there's a level of stuckness, lack of clarity. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm noticing patterns of staying where I am and nothing's working. And we go to, it must be something external. Like, it must be the new strategy that I'm not knowing about, which Brandon and I just said the same things we've been doing 10 years ago work today. And it's only the 20% veneer, the outside above the surface of the iceberg, that really changes today. But we're doing the same thing that we're doing. And you go, so why can I not figure this out? And I'm going to tell you it. I mean, at the risk of like assumptions with other people, because I don't know everybody listening, there's fear. What makes us so hard is that fear does not show up for fear to 90% of people, especially entrepreneurs. So you go, I'm not afraid. I'm stressed as fuck. I'm like, well, what do you think stress is, you big silly goof? Or I'm overwhelmed. What do you think overwhelm is? And, you know, Brandon, it's not that I'm afraid. I've just been overthinking something. What do you think overthinking is? Or what it came as for me, because intelligence was my strong suit. So your strengths become your weaknesses, and your ego will use your shit against you. So for me, I had logic. Fear masked itself in my life as logic. I had a logical reason for why not now, why not yet, for everything. Oh, this is the wrong time of year. Oh, there's already someone doing this. Oh, I don't have enough testimonials. Oh, I don't have this ready. Oh, this is going to take too much time. Logic, reason. And we are driven by so much fear. And sadly, it's a really fucked up scenario, because most entrepreneurs are driven to become an entrepreneur to fill a void within themselves. Like, this is what'll show them that I'm good enough. This is what'll prove my worth in the world. This will prove it to mom and dad. So everything that's driving it is from an illusion that something's missing. And if that's what's driving you, you're screwed, because then at one point or another, you're going to have to face the distortion that you've created that drove the whole thing, which is, if driving my entrepreneurial path is to prove something, that I'm enough, that I'm worthy, that I'm this, that I'm that, then we're also faced with the opposite side of that coin, which is, so what happens if it doesn't work? What happens if it fails? All of that is total it's the human experience, okay? So I'm like, we all go through that, okay? So I'm only talking about it because that's what I went through myself, and everyone I talk to goes through it to some degree. But if all of that was irrelevant, I'm not doing it to prove something. I'm not doing it to become worthy or valuable or lovable or whatever. I'm doing it because out of all the things I could do on the planet, this is what I want to do. And it's fun. It can help people, and it can make money. That really should be all it is. And there's no noise in that. There's no like, then I'll finally be enough, you know? And then if you just did it from that place, you'd start to recognize there's no fear. So a lot of the fear has everything to do with us, right? And so what we're doing, Brandon, is, and I'm sure we both can give examples of this, is we're making meaning out of everything, and either meaning about ourselves or predictions about the future. And this is what I've noticed is like a lot of fear comes down to a prediction we have about the future. And if it's a future we don't like, we're afraid of it, so we push it away. What if it doesn't work is a prediction about the future that's like, it's not going to work. And we're either like afraid to do something because we believe it's going to mean something about us, or cause a prediction to come to fruition about the future. Right. And here's where this gets really like, this is mind blowing. So, you know, you and I are really familiar with the be, do, have model. So if all fear is an internal response we feel in the present when we have a prediction of an unwanted future that we actually think is going to happen, all that's happening is that we have put a future in front of us that we don't want, and now we start living into that. So we say, I don't want this thing to happen, but now we start moving towards that, kind of like a moth to the flame.
Right.
And the future that you move towards, the future that you feed, and the future that you live into becomes the future that creates you. You become this is universally true, and this is like mind-bending for a lot of people. You become, in the present, the byproduct of the future that you live into. So when you're in fear, you're moving into and living into the very thing that you don't want, and it creates you as the powerless, full of fear, indecisive, hesitant, nervous, scared version of you, which is never going to be the version of you that gets you where you want to go in the first place. Could you imagine if Brandon was getting on those webinars and calls and he's like, so, I mean, I guess join local video academy if you want. I mean, right? Like, but he wasn't driven by that. He wasn't living into that future. He was saying, this is fun. I'm learning a ton. We're going to crush this, and we're going to help a lot of people, and we're going to make a lot of money. And all of a sudden, that's like where he came from. And that's, that's what's happening. So fear is the one word answer.
Fear. And so just to put this into an example, tangible example, what you're saying is like, we're in the present. We have the fear comes from this unwanted future. So it's like if someone's getting ready to spend, let's say $100,000 on a launch with Facebook ads, and all of a sudden this fear comes up of like, what if you lose it? You're going to be in debt, That future becomes the reality in their mind, which then in turns now is affecting their actions. So maybe they don't invest the money or they do invest it, but they're acting the way that they shouldn't be acting, which actually causes them to lose the money after all, which then basically the fear turns you into the person who makes your fear realities.
And that's why people say things like self-fulfilling prophecy. We are so powerful that whatever future you feed is the future you will end up living into, because the future you live into creates who you are in the moment. So that's be, do, have.
Yeah, exactly. And we're, fortunate enough to have mentor like Don Javier and a lot of Don Juan's teachings and access to a lot of really powerful wisdom. And so that's obviously helped us overcome it. And I have a very simple philosophy that I use to get myself out of fear, but I'd love to hear, is there a certain, strategy or philosophy or piece of wisdom that you use or go to that easily makes you more powerful or move you out of that fear when you're making those sort of decisions?
Yeah. So the first thing is understanding that's all fear is it's just an unwanted future. It hasn't happened yet. So the future is anything but certain. So it hasn't happened yet. That's step number one. The second thing is and this is from the teachings of Don Juan, is that we must look at fear as an enemy to conquer. So in a way, I personify or anthropomorphize fear. It's everyone's job listening. If you can hear our voice right now, it is your job, especially on the path of entrepreneurship. It is your job to face and conquer fear. And what people think is, here's how people get it wrong, is they think if I feel fear, it means I shouldn't do it. Why didn't you do it? Because I was afraid. So you've associated and made a neurological link that fear means don't do it. And we need to flip that, because when you face and conquer fear, it does not mean that fear is no longer present in your life. That is a huge misconception.
Right.
If fear is present in your life, it means you're doing something bigger than you've ever done. That's all it means, because we have a natural inborn survival instinct of fearing the unknown and craving familiarity. That's our human reptilian brain. So conquering fear is separating and breaking that conditioned default link and understanding and saying fear is just going to tell you go left or stop or go back. And you're just choosing to say, I'm not going to listen to you. So until you conquer fear, fear is driving the bus in your life. Fear is telling you to stay where you are, stay safe, overthink, overcomplicate, stop, choose confusion and overwhelm, stay stuck. And that's the way it has its hold over you. Where I can say, yeah, I still get afraid today. And I can see it in an instant. So that awareness of like, ooh, fear is coming up. And there's one more piece I'll add at the end. But the awareness, like fear is coming up. What does the fear want me to do? And it's like, whoa, it's really trying to keep me safe and stuck here or pull me this way. And it's like, no, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm doing. And I'm choosing powerfully regardless. It doesn't mean I'm still not having an experience of fear. That's a good thing, because we're growing, right? But I don't let fear drive the bus today. As much as I can. I'm still, human and working through that, but there's a way higher level of awareness. And the last piece, and this was also from the Don Juan's teaching, and this to me was the cherry on top, or really it's like the ground on the bottom, which is if you're listening to this podcast, you're doing okay. Because there are a lot of people out there that don't even have access to the internet, let alone a phone or headphones. And, they may be homeless, so they don't have the access that you and I do to listen to a podcast. So we should be very grateful for that. And the fact that you have the time and the ability to listen to a podcast means that no matter what you're going through in your life, like there's a level of okay that you are. You're doing okay, that you're fine. Maybe you're not where you want to be, and maybe you've been in better places, but you're okay. You're doing okay. You're at the very least doing okay. And if you look back in your life, chances are, if you gotten to this point and you're still alive, you've done okay. Right. So if you've been alive 40 years of your life, give or take, however many years, whatever many years you've been alive, and you're still here, the predominant theme of your life is you've been doing okay. Is it fair to say at this point that that's going to be the current theme moving forward? That if for 35, 40 years of your life you've done okay, you've been okay, everything's been okay, the likelihood of you continuing to be okay no matter what is probably going to be the undercurrent. And that really helped me. It's like, you're going to be okay. Like everything's going to be fine. You always land on your feet.
Really interesting you bring that up, because that's the exact line I wrote down in my notes. As you were talking about fear and stuff, is Don Juan's teachings of everything is going to be okay. And I mentioned this on a recent podcast that we did, but a lot of people, for me, when I would hear that, I remember when Don Javier told us that, it's like, look, everything's going to be okay. If it doesn't go the way you want it, it's going to be okay. Everything is and always has been and always will be okay. But there's still a part of me that goes like, yeah, but I still don't want to go through those experiences, I don't I get that, but there's something after like going through it so many times where you understand, like, if you still don't get the outcome that you desire, there's going to be that lesson that you've learned that you need. And I think so many people miss that. Like, if you truly miss the lessons in these hard times, it's like, yeah, it's gonna really suck because you got nothing out of it. And what a shame that is, to have to have gone through that pain and not learned anything. And so anytime I go through a hard time in the business, or I make a really tough decision and things don't go the way I expected or wanted them to, I'm always so grateful, because I look back and go like, oh my God, what a blessing that actually was. And when you start to look at these unwanted outcomes as blessings, you're like, you start to get excited no matter what. And you start to feel unstoppable. You start to feel like nothing can take you down, because all you're going to do is just learn and grow. And you and I were just talking about a writing from Don Javier. We talked about, like, this is what you signed up for. Like, when you, this is what you asked for. You know, when you go through really hard time, you're like, I want $1 million business. And then all of a sudden it doesn't go the way you wanted it to. And you're going through a really hard time. It's like, this is what you asked for, because this experience is molding you.
Yeah. The first time someone refunds or doesn't, someone cancels or refunds and you're like, oh my God, the sky is falling. It's like, I mean, it's like, shut up and sit down, because this is what you asked for. Otherwise, don't do this, you know? And it comes back to that simple truth of entrepreneurs are those that are willing to do what others won't, but they're the ones that end up doing and experiencing what others don't and can't because of that. And it's just choice, you know? So people always ask that question, do I have what it takes? I say you always have what it takes for what your heart desires. It's simply a matter of, are you willing to give what it takes? And I hope that answers yes, you know. But yeah, man, it's that fear is a big one.
I got the quote I needed. James Wedmore, sit down and shut up. This is what you asked for.
I know. But here's a hack, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. Like I think
no.
Brandon and I both had to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, sit down and shut up. You're getting your pity and all that stuff.
Sometimes people need to hear it. Like sometimes we all need to sit down and shut the fuck up and just put your head down and get to work and get over it. Like sometimes we need that, and sometimes we need the hug. So yeah, James will give you both.
You get a slap in the face and then a hug and a squeeze of the tushy. Okay. Ooh, but I want to add on what you were saying there really quick. Because I believe this is like what you were just speaking on is actually really huge. Because we also put a lot of importance on an attachment to the money and a certain amount of money at a certain amount of time and how fast and blah, 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 blah. And we get all hung up by that. And all of a sudden this thing that day one was so inspiring and so exciting and got us out of bed in the morning. Now it's like, it isn't happening fast enough and isn't making me enough millions. And we're all like miserable and unhappy. And what has evolved for me, which is exactly what Brandon was talking about. And if anybody does this, I think this is the ultimate, hands down, the number one growth hack that you could ever adopt in your life. And that is looking at your values. And our values are like the cups that we need filled in order to feel fulfilled and happy in our life, right? And so we make a lot of decisions in our life based off of our values. So one of Brandon's top values, as he has shared with me in the past, is family. So he makes decisions in his life in accordance to filling that cup of family. You know, like if I said, dude, 3-month trip, you and I, let's go. He'd be like, no, dude. You know, it's like, I'm going to be away from my family for 3 months. Like, it's not happening, right? So we make decisions in accordance with that. So what do you think would change when you make personal growth or spiritual growth or your evolution or your awakening as one of your highest values? All of a sudden, everything you're going through is experienced and looked at through that lens. And all of a sudden, life takes on completely new meaning to you. Life occurs to you completely differently because you're not afraid to fail because you know, as Brandon said, you're either going to get what you wanted or you're going to get the growth that you needed, and growth becomes more important than money. So you'll get what you want and you'll get what you need. And today, it's very bizarre. Like people ask me, like, man, you went through some really hard times. Like, how'd you get through that? And I'm like, I had to get hungry about growth. And sadly, the way that we're wired is pain and problems really are a blessing because they force you to pay attention to what you've been ignoring. They force you to look at the blind spots in your life and say, yo, pay attention. This is where you get to grow next. This is where you get to evolve. This is where you get to step up. This is going to strengthen you. This is going to prepare you. This is going to teach you. And if you fall in love with that growth, all of a sudden, like you're leaning into all that. And you're like, 100%. Come at me, bro. with life's problem. Come at me, bro.
I'm here for it all.
And I love that you're here for it all. And that's like a really powerful context to take on for life.
Yeah. I love that. So you get what you want or you get what you need in order to get what you want. But both places end at you get what you want.
Exactly. As long as you don't give up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only way you fail is you gave up. You just stopped. And like, that's the thing. I've never seen Brandon ever since I've known Brandon, I've never seen him give up. I've never seen him stop. I've never seen him say, you know what, man, I'm done. never stop. And he's changed and evolved over like different models and businesses over the years. Like he said, he worked with another business partner, and then he had an agency, and then he's doing Video 4X, and then Video 4X evolved into New Generation Mastery. I've never seen him say, I don't know, man, I'm done. Like, and he would say the same about me. I've never stopped. Yeah. And it's like, we don't need to like romanticize success and make it such an elusive thing. It's like, it's really all right there, what we just said. Like you're clear on something you want, you go after it consistently, and you're either going to get what you need in the pursuit of it, or you're going to get what you want. And eventually, if you get what you need, it will lead you to what you want. Just don't give up.
Yeah, I love it. Powerful. I didn't expect the podcast to go down this route, but I'm glad it did. And this is incredible. I know that you have a free series coming up where you're going to be giving away some free training, spending about 3 days with a bunch of people and talking a lot about this, the mindset, the performance, as well as structurally, what do we need in order to become that digital CEO and start that business. Can you tell everyone a little bit about what to expect from that? And then I'll throw out the link
for sure. Like in the simplest version, I took my first business right around that same time to over 7 figures selling digital products, 7 figures a year. And I love teaching the online expert, whether you're selling a course, group coaching, or a membership, how to do that. Today we're at 8 figures, and we've been there for a few years now. And what I've gotten so clear on over the years, and like where I really love to help people, is a lot of people have just been sold on this romanticized dream of what the entrepreneur is. And a lot of people, when you say like, what do you think of like a successful entrepreneur? They think of like on the beach, laptop, daiquiri or margarita or something like that. And it's actually not the case with most you meet. It's actually, the reality is most are struggling, most are burnt out, most are overworking, and most are unhappy. And if you were to ask me why, I would say the number one reason is because they don't know how to run a business. They don't know the first fucking clue of how to run an actual business. So entrepreneurs can be really great at starting a business, really great at a new idea, innovation, creativity, quick start, risk takers, right? Those are the common things you hear with an entrepreneur. But once you start a business, it needs something else, and that's called running a business. The argument that I like to make is that it's in running a business is where you'll get all the things that was promised to you when you were told become an entrepreneur. Running a business is where all the freedom comes in. Running a business is where all that scalability, that impact, and the time and financial freedom is. And so whether you're at a starting phase or already kind of running, we need to get you to that second phase as fast as possible. The Rise of the Digital CEO is the first series that really teaches everything that is important about marketing and sales for the digital product-based owner and weaves it into how to actually run a business. Today, we've just got a bunch of really busy, overworked marketers selling and promising the same thing to everybody else and not really producing results. And I always aim to say, I want to build a real business. And you just look at that as a fact of like, we've been at 8 figures with 8 employees for 5 years now. 8 figures a year.
Unheard of, man. It's unheard
and
of.
That's just like, and you don't need to get to, I mean, we were at 7 figures for years, but when let's say, take me back to that time, 7 figures a year, and you've got a well-oiled machine, you're only working a couple hours a day. Yeah. You got a profit margin of 50%. Like, you're doing fine. And a lot of people have higher than 50%. You're doing just fine. And, but you have to run a business like a business. And I think most entrepreneurs are just like, don't know how to run it. And so I'm all about streamlining. I'm about structure. I'm about simplicity. I'm about systems, all the S words. And it doesn't sound sexy, which is another S word. But when you have all that in place, it gives you what is sexy. It gives you the freedom, both financially, time, and location-based. And that's why I'm able to still do what I do today and love it so much, just as much as I did even when we first met and before, because my business doesn't drain me, it gives to me. And I want that for everybody. So that and so much more is what we're going to talk about on the Rise of the Digital CEO. June 1st.
Love it. June 1st, you guys can get access to that at brandonlucero.com/ROTDC. So those are the initials of Rise of the Digital CEO. So it's brandonlucero.com/ROTDC. We'll also have it in the show notes, but again, one more time, write it down, get your pen out, brandonlucero.com/ROTDC. And so James is going to talk to you guys about all of that stuff, a lot of what we talked about today and more. So head over there. If you have not registered, it's going down June 1st. I actually think that this episode may be released on June 2nd. So day one might be already out, depending on when this podcast comes out. If so, head over that link. The replay of day one is ready. It's available for you. You guys can watch it and get ready for day 2 and 3. It's going to be amazing. James, thank you so much for spending an hour and a half with me today. Very grateful for that. And thanks for sharing your wisdom with my peeps. I appreciate it, buddy.
Absolutely. Anytime, man. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Take care, guys. We'll see you next week. Hey, guys. Thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested. And thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.